Assalamualaikum. My name is Siti Nur Humaira and I'm going to do the introduction. In the introduction, we're going to discuss the relationship between climate change and the ecosystem. Climate change is defined as the long-term alteration of temperature and typical weather patterns in a place. The climate of the world is changing and continuously evolve throughout the modern world and beyond. Warmer temperatures, new movements of precipitation, and other alterations have been impacting numerous forms of human activities and the natural environment. Climate change is taking place on a large scale, yet these environmental consequences are mostly regional and vary substantially. Next is the ecosystem. The ecosystem is defined as the complex of a community of organisms and its environment functioning as an ecological unit. Animals, plants, as well as microbes which reside within an area, together with water, soils, and minerals, form an ecosystem. There is a relationship between climate change and the ecosystem. Increased temperatures, shifts in weather patterns, elevated frequency and severity of weather events, and also escalation of the hydrological processes can alter ecosystem, process levels, and relations to other ecosystems, which is sometimes permanent. Alterations in ecosystem efficiency, food chain interactions, transmission of disease, distribution of contaminants, and climate response have critical societal implications.
Okay, next is factor affecting climate change. The main factor of climate changes is greenhouse effect. Greenhouse effect can be explained when the gases in the atmosphere such as water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide and chlorofluorocarbon let the sun's light in but keep some of the heat from escaping like the glass wall of the greenhouse. The more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, the more the heat trapped, strengthening the greenhouse effect and increasing the Earth's temperature. Okay, next I want to show you guys the graph of global temperature for the past 425,000 years. This is today's temperature that shows how the climate change affect the temperature. But what about here? The today's temperature shows that most of the climate changes is causes from the human causes. But what about the others four? Because there is no people there. There have been 5 warmer periods for us in the last 450,000 years. Some of these must be natural causes. Natural causes give big influence to the climate changes. The past 425,000 years ago, the climate has been changing before the people were around. This can be a proof that there are some natural causes that affect the climate change. The natural causes can be divided to 3 causes, which is orbital changes, solar output variation, and volcanic activity. Orbital changes. First and foremost, the factor affecting the climate changes is orbital changes. Orbital changes is one of the causes of climate changes when the orbit vary in size, also more egg-shaped by time to time when the Earth goes around the Sun. The changes of orbit affect the heating of the Earth. This factor can be possibly last from between 10,000 to 100,000 years. Volcanic eruption. Major volcanic eruption change the atmosphere. Lots of particles are thrown out, some of which reflect the sun's rays, meaning that the surface of the earth cools down. Carbon dioxide is also released, but not enough to cause global warming. It thought that volcanoes are only capable of causing short-term climate change. The sun activity is changed over time, which is solar output variation. The increase the activity make it hotter, that called solar flares. The less the activity make cooler, that called sunspot. Solar output variation change in short cycle and maybe longer cycle as well. It is possible when output is low, the earth cools cool. Scientists are not convinced that the solar output variation is enough to significantly affect the climate changes. The second one is human causes. Human causes, which is human activity from pollution to overpopulation, are driving up the Earth's temperature and fundamentally changing the world around us. The human causes can be divided to four causes, which is deforestation, burning fossil fuels, farming, cement production. Deforestation. Deforestation can cause high risk of climate changes. During photosynthesis, plants take in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and use it to make food. Deforestation means there are fewer trees removing carbon dioxide. Additionally, carbon dioxide is released when the trees are burned. Burning fossil fuels. Fossil fuels include coal, petrol, natural gas, and oil. When fossil fuels are burned, carbon dioxide released. This can affect the climate change to increase rapidly. Farming, agriculture. Agriculture, especially intensive agriculture characterized by monoculture and aim the feeding farm animals, is one of the sectors that generates the highest amount of emission of carbon dioxide, which is the main greenhouse gas. This quantity can be compared only to the sum total of the carbon dioxide emitted by all forms of transportation.
So now I will explain about the effects of climate change. Animals and plants' life are struggling to adapt to this condition for survival. If even one species goes extinct, it can create a domino effect with the food chain. No living plants and animals, meaning no living humans. Firstly, effects to humans. Higher temperatures cause heat exhaustion, heat stroke, hypothermia, and dehydration, which can result in death in extreme cases. Moreover, they may trigger pre-existing conditions such as hypertension, cardiovascular, respiratory, cerebrovascular, kidney-related conditions, and also diabetes. Excessive heat is more likely to affect populations in northern latitudes where people are less prepared to cope with excessive temperatures. Certain types of populations are more vulnerable than others. For example, outdoor workers, students, athletes, and homeless people tend to be more exposed to extreme heat because they spend more time outdoors. Low-income households and older adults may lack access to air conditioning, which also increases exposure to extreme heat. Additionally, young children and also pregnant women are less able to regulate their body temperature and can therefore be more vulnerable to extreme heat. Secondly, effects to animals, melting of polar ice caps. Climate change is heating up the Arctic faster than anywhere else, and sea ice is shrinking 14% per decade. Polar bears give birth and hunt on sea ice, and they need it to travel from one region to another. Survival of mothers and cubs in the spring depends on the mother's hunting success, which in turn depends on the stability and extent of sea ice. The farther the bears have to travel to get on the ice to hunt, the more weight they lose. Eventually, they will start losing muscle, hurting their chances of hunting success, which can lead to a downward spiral. Bears are also doing a lot more swimming as the sea ice declines. Polar bears are actually not extinct yet, but climate change made them lose their habitat and be listed as a threatened species. As you can see, here are some examples of how the polar bears are struggling to save themselves. The second one is ocean acidification. Ocean acidification refers to decreasing levels of pH in the ocean, which makes the sea more acidic. It is the long-term change in seawater chemistry due to the absorption of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Ocean acidification is particularly detrimental to species that build their skeletons and shells from calcium carbonate, like coral reefs, clams, mussels, crabs, phytoplankton, and corals, and that constitute the bottom of the food chain. The shells and skeletons of these animals may become less dense or strong. In the case of coral reefs, this may make them more vulnerable to storm damage and slow the recovery rate. Thirdly, effects to plants. The increase in carbon dioxide levels and temperature can cause changes in the metabolic activities of the plant. The adverse effect will result in stunted growth of the plant and lower photosynthesis rates. Plants will not receive adequate water during their growing season, and this will result in poor growth and flowering. The high carbon dioxide and other pollutants in the atmosphere can cause acid rain, which can cause great damages to the plant foliage and their ability to photosynthesis. Higher temperature will also have an adverse effect on flowering and seed production in plants. Plants are getting their source of nutrients from healthy soil. If soil would be healthy at all, plants also might die, especially if the plants are in need of water. Last but not least, effects to environment. Climate change also causes more frequent and intense natural disasters such as hurricanes, floods.
Hi, my name is Farhana Hani. I will present about ways to reduce climate change. These are few ways that we can use to reduce climate change. I will explain details one by one. First of all, say no to plastic. Banning plastic from the environment will automatically reduce the level of pollution to several folds. But considering the abundance of plastic in every nook and corner of our life, the task seems unrealistic. But some small steps can considerably decline the amount of plastic pollution from our life. These are using recycled cloth bags, discarding the plastic bottles and using glass, clay, stainless steel or copper bottles, and replace your plastic lunchbox with steel ones. Regarding to the topic, we must practice TR2, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle. Let me tell you how much do we save by recycling. Recycling cans and metals save about 95% of the energy needed to make them new. Recycling paper requires 40% less energy and 30% less water compared to new paper. 70 trees are saved for every ton of recycled paper. Recycling plastic saves about 70% of the energy, while recycling glass saves about 30% of the energy. Next is clean your commute. Millions of people drive to work every day. It is simply unavoidable in our modern day society. However, the downside to this is that millions of cars emit greenhouse gases that destroy our atmosphere. The many ways to reduce your transportation emission will also make you healthier and save you a few bucks. Whenever and wherever you can take public transport, car share, riding your bike to work is also incredibly helpful to the environment and is a great method to get exercise. If you have a large, inefficient vehicle, retire it and switch to an electric or plug-in hybrid vehicle. Fly less. If you do fly, make sure offsets your emission. Number 3 is sun to the rescue. Alternating fossil fuel with the energy of our hottest star might be an excellent idea to decline the trend of overuse of resources. The use of solar panels to enlighten our houses at night can save thousands of megawatts of electricity. Although setting up rooftop solar panels can be expensive, but with the advancement in technology, the rate of solar panels are declining and the overall costs is installing this panel will get mitigated in the long run. Besides, stop chopping the forest and start plant a tree. Every year, 33 million acres of forest are cut down. Timber harvesting in the tropics alone contribute 1.5 billion metric tons of carbon to the atmosphere. That represents 20% of human-made greenhouse gas emissions and a source that could be avoided relatively easily. Deforestation is one of the major reasons why the quality of air has degraded to an all-time low. The loss of trees and other vegetation can cause climate change, desertification, soil erosion, fewer crops, flooding, increased greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and a host of problems for indigenous people. Due to the decline in the number of trees, the environment of the earth has been adversely affected. Many flora and fauna are on the verge of extinction due to the loss of their natural habitat. Plant a tree may help mitigate climate change. A single tree will absorb approximately 1 ton of carbon dioxide during its lifetime. Last but not least, use energy wisely. By becoming more energy efficient, you not only pollute less, but save money too. Consider making some or all of these small changes. Together, they can really add up. A house with a furnace is like a car that idles all day. Swap your furnace for a heat pump, which works by extracting heat from one location and transferring it to another. Install a programmable thermostat. Swap your gas stove for an electric stove, which will also lower indoor air pollution. Unplug computers, TVs, and other electronics when you are not using them. Wash clothes in cold water. Hand dry your clothes when you can and use dryer balls when you cannot. Look for the Energy Star label when buying new appliances. Change to energy efficient light bulbs and get a home or workplace energy audit to identify where you can make the most energy saving gains.
Okay, so I will present with the conclusions. In conclusion, climate change gives us effect to humans, animals, plants, and environment. We need to take part and try to stop human causes such as deforestation, farming, burning fossil fuels, and others on climate change, since we can do much if it is caused by the natural causes such as volcanic eruptions. We need to reduce global warming since it is the major causes of climate change. If the Earth's temperature continues to rise in the future, living things on Earth will become extinct due to the high temperature. If humans contribute to control global warming, this world will be cooler and the high temperatures we currently have will decrease. If everybody as one takes stand and try to end most of the climate changes that are occurring, this world will be a safer place to live on. So this is our reference. Tara? Okay. This is our reference. Okay, that's all for us. Thank you.